I'm leaving you and I've already sold the house to move in with my new guy. Good luck finding a place. My name's Damon. I'm 45. Been running international business consulting out of Seattle for the past 12 years. That call came through while I was sitting in a glass conference room overlooking Dubai's skyline, finalizing a partnership deal worth more than most people see in a lifetime. The voice on the other end belonged to my wife of 14 years. Her tone wasn't sad or apologetic. It was smug. Trisha had been acting different for months. The way she guarded her phone like it held state secrets. The sudden interest in yoga classes that ran late into the evening. Those work events that seemed to multiply every week. I'd noticed, but I'd kept quiet. That's how I handle things. Watch. Listen. Think. But this call? This was something else entirely. Did you hear me, Damon? She continued, her voice cutting through the static. I said I sold the house. The papers are already signed. Jeremy and I found a place in Bellevue, much nicer neighborhood. Jeremy, so that was his name. The guy she'd been sneaking around with while I was traveling for work, building the life she was now dismantling. I leaned back in my chair watching the evening prayer call echo across the city below. My business partner, Hassan, was reviewing contracts at the other end of the table, pretending not to listen. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, securing a deal that would set us up financially for years, while my wife was back home burning down everything we'd built together. You still there? Trisha's voice had an edge now, like she was disappointed I wasn't screaming or begging. I smiled, though she couldn't see it. Yeah, I'm here. Well, don't you have anything to say? I looked out at the construction cranes dotting the horizon, each one reaching toward something bigger. Just wait and see. She laughed. Actually laughed. Wait and see what? You're stuck in Dubai for another week. By the time you get back, we'll be moved out and you'll be homeless. Maybe next time you'll think twice before putting work before your marriage. The line went dead. Hassan looked up from his papers. Everything all right, my friend? I set the phone down and reached for my briefcase. Just my wife making some interesting business decisions. What Trisha didn't know was that I'd been making some business decisions of my own. 3 months ago, when she started pushing me to sign new title paperwork putting the house solely in her name for tax advantages, I'd gotten curious. Curious enough to hire a private attorney. Curious enough to quietly block the transfer. The house was still mine. Every square foot of it. I met Trisha when I was 31 and she was 26. She worked at a marketing firm downtown. Had this way of lighting up a room when she walked in. I was building my consulting business from nothing, working 18-hour days, living off coffee and determination. She said she admired my drive. Said she wanted to build something together. For the first few years we did. She helped me set up client presentations, organized my travel schedule, even suggested the house in Queen Anne we eventually bought. It was a 1920s craftsman with original hardwood floors and a view of Elliott Bay. We put 20% down and spent weekends painting walls, refinishing the basement, planting a garden she swore she'd maintain. My dad had always told me, son, when you find someone who wants to build with you, hold on to them. I thought I had. The cracks started showing around year 10. My business was taking off, which meant more travel, longer hours, bigger deals. Trisha complained I was never home. But when I suggested she come on trips with me, she always had an excuse. Her job was too demanding. Her sister needed help with the kids. Her yoga instructor was starting a new program. I started noticing small things. The way she'd step into the other room when her phone rang. How she'd come home from girls' nights smelling like cologne that wasn't mine. The credit card statements showing charges at restaurants I'd never been to, at times when she said she was working late. 6 months ago, she brought up the house paperwork. Said her accountant recommended putting it in her name only for tax purposes. Something about protecting assets if my business ever got sued. It sounded reasonable, but something felt off. I'd built this business on reading people, on spotting the details that didn't add up. So I called my own attorney. Turned out there were no tax advantages to what she was proposing. If anything, it would have complicated our finances. When I told Trisha I needed more time to review the paperwork, She got angry, said I didn't trust her, said after 14 years, I should be able to sign a simple document without questioning her motives. That's when I knew for certain something was wrong. I had my attorney quietly block the title transfer while I was traveling. If Tricia was planning something, I wasn't going to make it easy for her. I'd learned a long time ago that in business you verify everything. Apparently marriage wasn't much different. The warning signs had been there for months. I just hadn't wanted to see them. The late-night texts she'd quickly hide. The new clothes that seemed designed to impress someone who wasn't me. The way she'd started talking about fresh starts and new possibilities. I should have confronted her earlier. Instead, I did what I always do. I watched, waited, and prepared for whatever was coming. Hassan and I wrapped up the Dubai meeting 3 hours after Tricia's call. The partnership was solid, contracts signed, hands shaken. Under normal circumstances, I would have been celebrating. Instead, I found myself sitting alone in my hotel room at midnight, staring at my phone. I called my attorney back in Seattle. James Morrison had been handling my business legal work for 5 years, and when I'd asked him to quietly review the house situation 3 months ago, he'd been thorough, professional, discreet. Damon, he answered on the second ring. I heard from my contact at the title company. Your wife attempted to complete a sale today. She forged your signature on the transfer documents. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not surprise, exactly. More like confirmation of something I'd been trying not to believe. How much? I asked. $420,000. The buyers are legitimate. They have no idea the seller doesn't actually own the property. I walked to the window overlooking the Persian Gulf. Below, the city hummed with late-night energy, construction lights blinking like stars. Here was a place built on calculated risks, on understanding that every deal has multiple layers. You succeed by staying 3 steps ahead of the people trying to outsmart you. What are my options? I've already filed a fraud claim with the police. The sale can't proceed without your signature, and the buyer's earnest money is being held in escrow. If your wife tries to complete the transaction, she'll be committing federal wire fraud. I sat down heavily on the hotel bed. 14 years. We'd weathered my mother's death, her father's drinking problem, 3 job changes, and 2 miscarriages. Through all of it, I'd believed we were partners, that we were building something together. Instead, she'd been planning my destruction while I was working to secure our future. There's something else, James continued. I ran a background check on Jeremy Patterson. He's been married twice before. Both divorces involved allegations of financial manipulation. He's currently $43,000 behind on child support. I closed my eyes. Tricia had always been smart, but she'd never been careful. She fell for smooth talkers, believed in shortcuts, trusted people who told her what she wanted to hear. I'd thought my steadiness balanced her impulsiveness. Apparently, she'd seen it as an obstacle to remove. James, I need you to do something for me. Name it. Change the locks on the house tomorrow morning, then file for divorce. I want full documentation of the attempted fraud included in the filing. Consider it done. After I hung up, I sat in the darkness for a long time. The betrayal hurt, but not the way I'd expected. What hurt was the calculation behind it, the months of planning while she kissed me goodbye at the airport, the way she'd smiled when I'd called to check in from business trips, knowing she was setting up my destruction. But she'd made one critical mistake. She'd underestimated who she was dealing with. My flight landed at Seattle Tacoma International at 6:30 in the evening, 2 days after Tricia's call. I'd cut the Dubai trip short, telling Hassan I had a family emergency that required immediate attention. He'd understood. In his culture, family obligations came first, even when family was trying to destroy you. The drive from the airport to Queen Anne took 45 minutes in traffic. I spent the time thinking about what I might find when I got home. Would Tricia still be there, packing her things? Would the house be empty, cleaned out like our bank accounts probably were? Or would she be brazen enough to act like nothing had happened, like the call from Dubai was some kind of joke? I pulled into our driveway at 7:20. Her car was there, along with a blue Toyota Camry I didn't recognize. Through the living room window, I could see movement. Boxes stacked by the front door. Trisha moving back and forth between rooms, carrying things I'd helped her choose over the years. I sat in my truck for a few minutes, engine off, watching her pack up our life. She looked different somehow. Lighter. Like she was finally free to be whoever she'd been pretending not to be for the past 14 years. The front door was still using the same locks. She hadn't expected me back this soon. I walked in like I owned the place. Which, legally speaking, I did. Trisha was in the kitchen wrapping our good dishes in newspaper. She looked up when she heard my footsteps, and for just a second, I saw something that might have been fear flicker across her face. Then she composed herself, went back to wrapping plates. "You're early," she said, not looking at me. Flight got bumped up. A man appeared in the doorway between the kitchen and dining room. Jeremy, I assumed. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 38, with the kind of practiced smile that probably worked well at car dealerships and singles bars. He was wearing my University of Washington sweatshirt. "Jeremy Patterson," he said, extending his hand like we were meeting at a networking event. "Trisha's told me a lot about you." I looked at his hand but didn't take it. "I'm sure she has." Trisha set down the plate she was wrapping. "Damon, this doesn't have to be ugly. The sale is already in motion. The buyers are excited, they're moving from California, they have kids who need to start school. Just sign the papers and everyone can move on with their lives." "What papers?" She gestured toward the dining room table. A manila folder sat next to a pen, everything arranged like she was closing a business deal, which I supposed she was. I walked over and opened the folder. Transfer documents, all filled out except for my signature line. My name was already typed in Trisha's handwriting on several pages, but the actual signatures were blank. She'd learned from her first mistake. "You know," I said, closing the folder, "it's interesting. I just spent the last week negotiating a contract worth more money than this house will ever be worth. You know what the key to successful negotiation is?" Jeremy shifted uncomfortably. Trisha crossed her arms. "Information," I continued, "knowing exactly what you have, what the other party has, and what everybody really wants." I pulled out my phone and showed them a text message from James Morrison, time-stamped 30 minutes ago. "Fraud claim filed. Escrow frozen. Buyers notified of title issues." Trisha's face went pale. "What did you do?" "I protected my assets. Turns out you can't sell a house you don't own. And forging someone's signature? That's a felony." Jeremy was already backing toward the door. "Look, man, I didn't know about any of this. Trisha said you guys had worked everything out." "Jeremy," Trisha's voice was sharp, "don't leave." But Jeremy was already grabbing his jacket. "Call me when you get this sorted out." He was gone before Trisha could respond. She turned back to me, anger replacing the fear in her eyes. "You bastard. You ruined everything." "No," I said quietly. "You did that when you decided to steal from me." After Jeremy left, Trisha and I stood in our kitchen facing each other like strangers. 14 years of marriage, and it had come to this. Her trying to steal my house while I was working to build our future. Me catching her in the act and stopping her cold. "How long have you been planning this?" I asked. She leaned against the counter, arms still crossed. "Does it matter?" "It matters to me." She was quiet for a long moment, then laughed bitterly. "You really want to know? Fine. I started thinking about leaving you 2 years ago, when you missed my birthday because you were in Singapore, when you chose a client dinner over my sister's wedding reception, when you spent our entire vacation in Costa Rica on conference calls. So you decided to rob me. I decided to take what I deserved. Do you know how many evenings I sat alone in this house while you were building your precious business? How many times I went to events by myself because you were too busy to come with me?" I thought about the evenings she'd described, the events she'd attended alone. "How many of those events did you actually go to alone?" Her face flushed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I hired a private investigator 3 months ago, Trisha. I know about Jeremy. I know about the others before Jeremy. I know about the credit cards you opened in my name. The ones you used to pay for hotel rooms and expensive dinners with men who weren't your husband. The color drained from her face. You had me followed? I protected myself. Same way I protect my business. By getting all the facts before making important decisions. I pulled out a manila envelope from my briefcase and set it on the counter between us. Credit card statements, hotel receipts, photos, text message records, everything documented and ready for divorce court. She opened the envelope with shaking hands, flipped through a few pages, then closed it. How long have you known? I suspected for months. I knew for certain 3 weeks ago. Why didn't you say anything? Because I wanted to see how far you'd go. She slumped against the counter. You're going to destroy me, aren't you? I'm going to protect myself. There's a difference. My phone buzzed. Text message from James Morrison. Police report filed. Detective assigned. They want to interview you tomorrow morning. I showed Tricia the message. The fraud charges are moving forward. You forged my signature on legal documents to steal $400,000. That's serious jail time. Damon, please. Her voice was different now, smaller. I made mistakes, but we can work this out. I'll call off the sale. Jeremy and I will find another place. We can get divorced quietly, split things fairly. There's nothing left to split fairly. You tried to steal everything. The house is half mine. I lived here for 10 years. Actually, it's not. I pulled out another document from my briefcase. According to Washington state law, property acquired through fraudulent means can't be claimed in divorce proceedings. Since you tried to steal the house, you have no legal claim to it. She stared at the legal paperwork like it was written in a foreign language. That can't be right. James Morrison is very thorough. He's also very expensive. But then, I can afford very expensive attorneys. Tricia looked around the kitchen, at the house she'd tried to steal, at the life she'd tried to destroy. What happens now? Now you pack your things and leave. Tonight, before the police come looking for you. And if I don't? Then you'll be arrested for breaking and entering. This is my house, Tricia. You're no longer welcome here. Tricia left that night with 3 suitcases and a cardboard box of personal items. She didn't say goodbye, didn't apologize, didn't ask for a second chance. She just loaded her car and drove away, leaving behind 14 years of marriage like it was a rental agreement she'd decided not to renew. I changed the locks the next morning. James Morrison met me at the house at 8 a.m. with a locksmith and a security company technician. By 10 a.m., the house had new deadbolts, a new security system, and cameras monitoring every entrance. If Tricia tried to come back, I'd know about it immediately. The police interview went exactly as James had predicted. Detective Susan Walsh was professional, thorough, and clearly unimpressed with attempted real estate fraud. She took my statement, reviewed the evidence James had compiled, and assured me that charges would be filed within the week. Cases like this are usually pretty straightforward, she told me as we wrapped up. Your wife forged your signature on legal documents to sell property she didn't own. The evidence is clear. The intent is obvious. Unless she has a very good attorney, she's looking at 2 to 5 years. What about the man she was planning to move in with? Jeremy Patterson? We've had our eye on him for a while. This isn't his first time being involved in financial schemes. If we can prove he knew about the fraud, he'll be charged as an accomplice. I spent the rest of the morning in James Morrison's office, reviewing divorce paperwork and asset protection strategies. The private investigator's report was comprehensive. Tricia had been having affairs for over 2 years, had opened credit cards in my name without my knowledge, and had been systematically moving money from our joint accounts into personal accounts I'd never known existed. The good news, James explained, is that Washington is a community property state, but fraud changes everything. Since she tried to steal marital assets, the court will likely award you the majority of everything, including full ownership of the house. What about her claims that she deserves half because she lived there? She forfeited those claims when she committed fraud. A judge isn't going to reward criminal behavior with a financial settlement. By Friday afternoon, the pieces were falling into place. The buyers of our house had been informed about the title issues and were working with their attorney to recover their earnest money. Tricia had been served with divorce papers and was apparently staying in a motel near the airport. Jeremy Patterson had stopped returning her calls once he realized the police were involved. I was sitting in my home office, reviewing client files for the first time since Dubai, when my phone rang. Trisha's number. "Damon, we need to talk." "I don't think we do." "Please, I'm at a coffee shop on Pine Street. Just give me 10 minutes. Against my better judgment, I agreed. She looked different when I walked into the coffee shop. Tired. Older. The confidence she'd had when she called me in Dubai was gone, replaced by something that looked like desperation. "I'm sorry," she said as soon as I sat down. "I know that doesn't fix anything, but I needed to say it." "Okay." "Jeremy's gone. He said the legal problems were too complicated. Turns out he's not much for standing by people when things get difficult." I didn't respond. "I know you'll never forgive me. I just want you to know that I never meant for it to go this far. I was angry, and I made stupid decisions. You tried to steal my house, Trisha. While I was working to build our future, you were planning to destroy it. That's not a stupid decision. That's calculated betrayal." She started crying then, quiet tears that didn't change anything. "The divorce will be final in 6 months," I told her. "Don't contact me again." I left her sitting there and drove home to my house. The call came on a Tuesday morning in November, 6 months after I'd returned from Dubai to find Trisha trying to steal my life. Detective Walsh's voice was matter-of-fact, professional. "Mr. Ellison, I wanted to let you know that Trisha Ellison and Jeremy Patterson were arrested this morning. Grand theft, wire fraud, and conspiracy charges. The district attorney's office will be in touch about testifying at trial." I was sitting in my home office, the same room where I'd taken Trisha's smug phone call from Dubai. Outside my window, Elliott Bay sparkled in the morning sun. The house was quiet, peaceful in a way it hadn't been for years. "What changed?" I asked. "I thought they needed more evidence." "Patterson got greedy. Turns out your wife wasn't his first partner in this kind of scheme. He tried to run the same con on 2 other women, and one of them recorded their conversations. When we played those recordings for your wife, she decided to cooperate fully. The irony wasn't lost on me. Trisha had thrown away our marriage for a man who was running the same scam on multiple women simultaneously. She'd thought she was special, thought Jeremy had chosen her out of love. Instead, she'd been just another mark in his ongoing fraud operation. "The trial is scheduled for February. Are you willing to testify?" "Absolutely." After I hung up, I walked through the house Trisha had tried to steal, the living room where we'd watched movies on weekend evenings, the kitchen where she'd cooked elaborate dinners for my business partners, the bedroom where she'd lain next to me while planning my destruction. The divorce had been finalized in October. James Morrison had been right about the judge's reaction to fraud. I'd retained full ownership of the house, the business, and most of our shared assets. Trisha had walked away with her personal belongings and a criminal record. I'd heard through mutual friends that she was working at a department store in Spokane, living in a studio apartment, trying to rebuild a life she'd destroyed with her own greed. Jeremy Patterson, according to Detective Walsh, was facing federal charges in 3 states for similar schemes. The phone rang again, Hassan calling from Dubai. "My friend, I have good news. The partnership is expanding. We want to open a West Coast office and we want you to run it." I looked out at the city I'd built my life in, at the water that had always calmed me, at the future I'd almost lost to someone who'd never understood what we had. "I'm interested. Tell me more." Spring came early to Seattle that year. By March, the cherry trees along the waterfront were blooming, and I was spending my mornings on the deck Trisha and I had built together, drinking coffee and planning the expansion of my business into new markets. The trial had ended in February with guilty verdicts for both Trisha and Jeremy. She received 18 months in minimum security prison. He got 5 years in federal custody. Justice served. Chapter closed. I'd been dating someone new for the past month. Claire was an architect I'd met through Hassan's wife, someone who understood the demands of building something meaningful and didn't see ambition as betrayal. She was coming over for dinner tonight, bringing takeout from the Thai place downtown and blueprints for a renovation project she wanted my opinion on. The house felt different now. Lighter, I'd repainted the bedroom, bought new furniture for the living room, installed better lighting in the kitchen. It was still the same structure, but it felt like mine in a way it never had when I'd shared it with someone who'd been planning to steal it. My business was thriving. The Dubai partnership had led to contracts across the Middle East and Asia. I was making more money than I'd ever imagined. But more importantly, I was working with people who understood loyalty, who viewed partnerships as something to build rather than exploit. I'd learned something important through all of this. Trust wasn't about blind faith. It was about choosing people who'd earned the right to your confidence, people who wanted to build with you rather than tear you down. As the sun set over Elliott Bay, I realized I was happier alone in a house I owned completely than I'd ever been sharing it with someone who'd been planning to take it from me. The betrayal had cost Trisha everything. It had given me back my life. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be destroyed.